The signal beeped steadily on the monitor of the USS Horizon, a lonely sound in the quiet bridge. Admiral Scott Bennett leaned forward in his chair, his eyes fixed on the pulsing light. After 3 decades of service in the Earth fleet, he thought, nothing could surprise him anymore. He was wrong. "Confirm the source again," he ordered, his voice calm despite the tension in his shoulders. Lieutenant Olivia Simmons nodded and ran her fingers across the control panel. "Confirmed, sir. The signal is coming from Proxima Centauri b. It matches the frequency of the Colony 7 distress beacon." Scott rubbed his gray beard. Colony 7, a name from history books. One of humanity's first attempts to settle beyond the solar system, before the war that changed everything. "How long has this signal been broadcasting?" he asked, though he feared he already knew the answer. "According to our calculations, approximately 68 years, sir," replied Olivia, her voice softer now. "It began shortly after the colony lost contact with Earth." Scott closed his eyes. 68 years. Most of the original colonists were likely dead by now, if any had survived at all. Proxima Centauri b was believed to be habitable, but barely. The initial reports had indicated harsh radiation, thin atmosphere, and limited water sources. The 300 colonists had been equipped with enough supplies for 5 years, after which regular supply ships were supposed to arrive. But then the war came. Earth's nations turned against each other. Space exploration stopped. Colony 7 was abandoned, written off as a necessary loss in humanity's darkest hour. "Play the message on," Scott ordered. The computer beeped twice, and then a voice filled the bridge. It was scratchy with static and distortion, but still understandable. "This is Dr. Peter Kelly, Science Officer of Colony 7 on Proxima Centauri b. Our situation is critical. We've lost contact with Earth for 3 months. Our long-range communication array was damaged in a solar flare event. We have supplies for approximately 4 more years if we ration carefully. We request immediate assistance or at least confirmation that this message has been received. Please respond." The message ended, looped, and began again. The same words, repeated for almost 7 decades without answer. "Cut the playback," Scott said quietly. The bridge fell silent. Every officer there knew what this meant. They were likely listening to the voice of a long-dead man, a final plea that had gone unanswered for generations. Dr. Natalie Wright, the ship's lead scientist, spoke up from her station. "Admiral, our ship is the first in 50 years with the capability to reach them in less than a decade. The new Alcubierre drive could get us there in 14 months. Scott nodded slowly. The USS Horizon was meant to be a science vessel, designed to study the outer edges of human-controlled space. But it was also the fastest ship in the fleet, and the only one equipped with the revolutionary drive that folded space rather than traveling through it. "We have our orders to continue to Theta Station," reminded Commander Kyle Owens, the second in command. His face showed the conflict he felt, duty to their mission versus the pull of this unexpected discovery. Scott stood up and walked to the main view screen. The star Proxima Centauri was just a bright dot from this distance, its planets invisible to the naked eye. "Those orders were given before we discovered survivors might exist on Colony 7, Scott replied. "This changes everything." "If there are survivors," Kyle said cautiously. "After 68 years, even if there aren't, we need to know what happened. The colony might have left records, data that could help future colonization efforts," added Natalie. "And if by some miracle anyone did survive, we can't just leave them out there." Scott turned to face his crew. 25 men and women looking back at him, waiting for his decision. The Horizon wasn't designed for rescue missions. They had limited medical facilities and extra supplies. But they were also the only hope for a colony everyone else had forgotten. "Lieutenant Simmons, send a response to the Colony 7 beacon. Inform them that we've received their message and we're coming to assist," Scott ordered. Olivia's fingers moved quickly over the controls. "Message composed, sir. It might take several weeks to reach them at this distance." "Send it, then set course for Proxima Centauri b, maximum safe speed." Yes, sir, she replied, unable to hide the smile of approval on her face. Chief Engineer. Alan Parker spoke up from the engineering station. Admiral, I should warn you that sustained use of the Alcubierre drive at maximum capacity will put significant strain on our systems. We've never tested it for a continuous journey of this length. Noted, Chief. Do what you can to keep it running. I want to reach that colony as quickly as possible. Alan nodded. I'll make it work, sir. Dr. Wright, Scott continued. I want you to review all the data we have on Proxima Centauri B and Colony 7. Environment, supplies, potential survival scenarios, everything. Already on it, Admiral, Natalie replied, her screen already filling with information. Scott addressed the security officer next. Frank, prepare emergency response protocols. If there are survivors, they may need immediate medical attention. If not, we may need to secure the colony site. Frank Rodriguez nodded. I'll get my team ready, sir. As the crew sprang into action, around him, Scott returned to his chair and watched the stars on the view screen. Soon they would be traveling faster than light, heading toward a mystery nearly 7 decades in the making. Commander Owens, he said quietly to Kyle, who had taken the seat beside him. Contact Fleet Command. Inform them of our discovery and our change of course. Tell them we'll resume our original mission after we investigate Colony 7. Kyle nodded. And if they order us to continue to Theta Station instead? Scott considered this for a moment. Then we'll have a problem. But I don't think they will. We're not just a science vessel. We represent the best of humanity's values. And one of those values is that we don't abandon our own. The communication system chimed, drawing their attention. Olivia looked up from her station, her eyes wide. Admiral, we're receiving a response from Proxima Centauri B. Scott straightened in his chair. That's impossible. Our message couldn't have reached them yet. It's not a response to our message, sir, Olivia clarified. It's a new transmission altogether, and it's different from the automated distress signal. On speakers, Scott ordered. The bridge filled with a new voice, younger, female, and clear as day. Unknown Earth vessel, this is Kate Miller of the Proxima Colony. We've detected your scan of our beacon. If you're receiving this, know that we are still here. We have survived, and we have been waiting a very long time for someone to remember us. Scott and Kyle exchanged looks of disbelief. Not just survivors, but organized enough to detect the horizon's scan and respond immediately. Lieutenant, Scott said after a moment of stunned silence, tell Colony 7 we're on our way. 14 months passed like a dream. The USS Horizon traveled faster than any human ship before it, pushing the new Alcubierre drive to its limits. During the journey, Admiral Scott Bennett and his crew exchanged messages with the Proxima Colony, though the time delay between transmissions grew shorter as they approached. We'll reach orbit in 30 minutes, announced Lieutenant Olivia Simmons from the navigation station. The bridge crew worked with focused energy, their movements precise after months of preparation. Scott stood by the main view screen, watching as Proxima Centauri B grew from a distant dot to a full planet. It was smaller than Earth, with vast oceans that looked purple rather than blue under the red dwarf star's light. White clouds swirled across its surface and patches of green were visible on the continents. It looks more habitable than our record suggested, remarked Dr. Natalie Wright, who had joined Scott at the view screen. The original surveys indicated a much harsher environment. The colony has been here for almost 70 years, Scott replied. Maybe they changed it somehow. Commander Kyle Owens approached with a data tablet. Latest scans are complete, Admiral. We're detecting significant energy signatures from the colony site, much more than the emergency equipment they were supplied with could generate. Life signs? Scott asked. Numerous. At least several thousand. Scott raised his eyebrows. Several thousand? The colony started with only 300 people. They've been busy, Kyle said with a slight smile. The communication system chimed. Admiral, called Olivia. We're being hailed from the surface. On screen, Scott ordered. The view screen shifted from the planet view to the face of a woman in her mid-30s. She had dark brown hair pulled back tightly and skin with an unusual bluish tint. Her eyes were a striking violet color that Scott was certain wasn't a natural human shade. USS Horizon, this is Kate Miller, Governor of Proxima, Colony. On behalf of all our people, welcome to our world. Her voice was calm and measured, but a hint of emotion flickered across her face. Scott stepped forward. Governor Miller, I'm Admiral Scott Bennett. Thank you for your welcome. We're surprised to find your colony not just surviving, but thriving. Kate smiled slightly. We're survivors, Admiral. We had to be. We're sending coordinates for landing. Our main settlement has a field large enough for your shuttle. We look forward to meeting you in person after all this time. We'll be there shortly, Scott promised. When the transmission ended, Scott turned to his crew. Dr. Wright, Chief Parker, Lieutenant Rodriguez, you're with me on the landing party. Commander Owens, you have the ship. 2 hours later, the shuttle from the Horizon descended through Proxima Centauri B's atmosphere. Scott watched through the viewport as details of the landscape came into view. The colony wasn't just a settlement anymore. It was a proper city. Buildings of unusual design spread out from a central area, some rising several stories high. Fields of crops surrounded the city, and roads connected it to smaller settlements visible in the distance. Those buildings don't match any of the prefab structures the colony was supplied with, observed Chief Engineer Alan Parker. They've developed their own architecture. And their own technology, added Natalie, pointing to what looked like energy collectors of an unfamiliar design. Those aren't standard solar panels. The shuttle landed smoothly on a large open area near the center of the city. Scott noticed a crowd had gathered, keeping a respectful distance from the landing zone. As the engines powered down, he took a deep breath. Remember, these people have been isolated for generations. We represent the first contact with Earth they've had in their lives. Let's make a good impression. The shuttle door opened and Scott led his team outside. The air felt different, thinner than Earth's, but breathable. The light from Proxima Centauri cast everything in a reddish glow, making the scene look almost dreamlike. A small group approached from the waiting crowd. At their head walked Kate Miller, recognizable from the transmission. Up close, the bluish tint to her skin was more noticeable, as were her violet eyes. Admiral Bennett, she said, extending her hand. Welcome to Nova Haven. Scott shook her hand, noting her firm grip. Nova Haven? The records listed this settlement as Colony 7. That was its designation, Kate replied. Our grandparents renamed it after they realized no one was coming from Earth. A new haven for humanity among the stars. Scott nodded, understanding the symbolism. Governor Miller, allow me to introduce my team. Dr. Natalie Wright, our chief scientist, Chief Engineer Alan Parker, and Security Officer Frank Rodriguez. Kate greeted each of them before introducing her own companions, Dr. Eric Daniels, their head scientist, and Sam Foster, their security chief. Both had the same bluish skin tone and unusual eye colors, though Sam's were green rather than violet. You have questions, Kate said, noting the way the Horizon crew was studying them. About our appearance, among other things. We'll explain everything, but first please join us. We've prepared a welcome for you. She led them through the crowd, which parted to create a path. Scott noticed that many of the colonists were touching their right hand to their left shoulder as they passed, some kind of greeting or sign of respect. Your people seem healthy, Natalie commented as they walked. Far healthier than we expected, after nearly 70 years of isolation. We had to adapt, Kate replied simply. It was adapt or die. They entered a large building in the center of the city. Inside was a hall filled with tables and chairs, decorated with unfamiliar plants, bearing colorful flowers. More colonists waited inside, all watching the Earth visitors with curious eyes. The original colonists kept detailed records, Kate explained as they sat at the main table. They wanted future generations to remember Earth, even if Earth had forgotten us. They taught us about the world they came from, the history, the culture. But they also taught us that we couldn't cling to the past. We had to build something new here. And you have, Scott said, looking around. It's remarkable what you've accomplished without support. Kate's expression grew more serious. Necessity drove much of it, Admiral. This planet wasn't as habitable, as the initial surveys suggested. The radiation levels were higher, the atmosphere thinner. The first decade was difficult. Many died. I'm sorry to hear that, Scott said softly. Don't be, Kate replied. Their sacrifices taught us important lessons. And now, you're here. Tell me, Admiral Bennett, why has Earth remembered us now after all this time? Scott looked at Kate across the table. Her question hung in the air. Why had Earth remembered them now? The simple truth wasn't easy to share. We didn't know you were still here, Scott admitted. Earth suffered greatly during the war. Many records were lost. When peace finally came, rebuilding took priority. Space exploration only resumed about 20 years ago. Kate's face remained calm, but her violet eyes narrowed slightly. So finding us was an accident? Yes, Scott said honestly. We detected your distress beacon during a routine scan. No one expected a response. The war changed everything back home. Many believed your colony was lost. To Scott's surprise, murmurs of understanding rather than anger spread through the hall. Kate nodded slowly. We guessed as much, she said. Our founders theorized that only something catastrophic would have stopped Earth from sending help. They told us not to hold on to bitterness. Survival was what mattered. After the meal, Dr. Eric Daniels offered to show Natalie and Alan their scientific facilities. Scott and Frank went with Kate to her office in a tall building overlooking the city. You must have questions about how we've changed, Kate said as they sat down. I saw you noticing our appearance. Scott nodded. The blue skin tone and eye colors aren't typical human traits. They're adaptations, Kate explained. This planet's star emits radiation that's harmful to unmodified humans. Our ancestors found themselves getting sick within the first year. Their skin burned easily. Their eyes suffered damage. So you modified yourselves genetically? Frank asked, leaning forward with interest. We had no choice, Kate replied. The colony included several brilliant geneticists. They developed modifications that allowed our bodies to process certain elements in the atmosphere and protect against radiation. The blue skin is a side effect, a harmless one. The first generation of modified children were born 30 years after landing. That's incredible, Scott said. Earth has strict laws against human genetic modification. Kate's expression hardened slightly. Earth wasn't here to help us survive. We did what was necessary. Meanwhile, Natalie and Alan followed. Eric through laboratories filled with equipment unlike anything they had seen before. Workers in light blue uniforms moved among strange machines. Your technology is very different from ours, Natalie observed. Eric smiled. We had to develop our own solutions. The original colony equipment began failing after a decade. Without replacement parts from Earth, we needed alternatives. He stopped at a table where a glowing blue crystal sat in a containment field. This is our biggest discovery. We call it stellium. It absorbs the radiation from our sun and converts it to usable energy. Alan studied the crystal with fascination. This powers your city? And much more, Eric confirmed. It also helps protect our buildings from radiation. We mine it from the northern mountains. Is that how you've altered the planet's atmosphere? Natalie asked. Our scans show it's much more Earth-like than it should be. Eric looked impressed. You noticed that quickly. Yes, we've been terraforming slowly. Stellium, when processed correctly, releases oxygen. We've established processing plants across the continent. Back in Kate's office, she showed Scott and Frank a three-dimensional map of their settlement and surrounding areas. Nova Haven is our main city, but we have 11 smaller settlements across this continent, she explained. Our population is just over 4,000 now. All descended from the original 300 colonists? Frank asked. Kate nodded. We maintain careful genetic records to prevent inbreeding. It's been challenging, but we've managed, though I must admit, the arrival of new genetic material from your crew would be welcomed by our scientists. Scott raised an eyebrow, and Kate laughed. I don't mean it like that, Admiral. Just blood samples and genetic data would help our research tremendously. As the tour continued, Scott noticed something odd. Certain areas on the map were marked in red, and the colonists seemed to avoid mentioning them. When their path approached one such area at the edge of the city, their guides subtly redirected them. That evening, a celebration was held in the central square. The colonists shared their music, haunting melodies played on instruments made from local materials. They served food and drinks unique to their world. Despite the strange surroundings, Scott found himself enjoying the festivities. During a quiet moment, he approached Kate, who stood watching the celebration. "Your people have built something remarkable here," he said. "But I can't help noticing. There are parts of your world you're not showing us." Kate's expression became guarded. "You're observant, Admiral. Is there something you're hiding?" Kate sighed and looked up at the night sky where the USS Horizon orbited, visible as a moving point of light. "Not hiding, protecting." She turned to face him directly. "Walk with me." They moved away from the celebration to a quiet garden area. Strange plants glowed with soft blue light in the darkness. When our ancestors realized no help was coming, they explored this world more thoroughly, Kate explained. What they discovered changed everything. "What did they find?" Scott asked. "We're not alone on this planet," Kate said simply. Scott stared at her. "You mean?" "Yes. There is indigenous intelligent life here. We call them the Singers. They live primarily underground, in vast networks of caves. They were here long before us." Scott felt his heart race. In all of humanity's exploration, they had never encountered another intelligent species. "Are they hostile?" "Not exactly," Kate replied carefully. "They're territorial. We've established boundaries. We stay in our regions, they stay in theirs. The red zones on our maps mark their territories." "Why didn't you tell us immediately?" Scott asked. "Because it's complicated," Kate said. "The relationship is fragile. It took our ancestors decades to establish communication and trust. They're very different from us, Admiral. They don't think like we do. They don't look like anything you'd expect. I need to report this to Earth," Scott said. "This is a major discovery." Kate placed a hand on his arm. "And you will. But first, there's something else you should know." She looked around to ensure they were alone. "The Singers have been watching your ship since you arrived. They're curious about you." "Have they communicated this to you?" Kate nodded. "They sent a message this morning. They want to meet you." Scott felt the weight of history on his shoulders. The first human contact with an alien intelligence would happen here, on this forgotten colony world. "When?" he asked. "Tomorrow," Kate replied. "They're already preparing for the meeting, but I must warn you, Admiral. They're very sensitive to emotional states. If they sense fear or aggression, they may react poorly. This meeting must go well, for all our sakes." Scott spent a restless night in the guest quarters provided by the colonists. The news of intelligent alien life kept his mind racing. He had informed his crew of the upcoming meeting, instructing them to prepare but remain calm. Morning came, with a soft purple light filtering through the windows. Scott met with Natalie, Alan, and Frank for breakfast. They ate quietly, each lost in their own thoughts about what would happen today. "Have you told the ship?" Natalie asked finally. Scott nodded. "I sent a private message to Commander Owens. He's under orders not to share the information with the rest of the crew yet. If something goes wrong today..." He didn't finish the sentence. They all understood the stakes. Kate arrived to escort them, dressed in formal attire, a deep blue tunic over fitted pants, with a silver sash across her chest. "The Singers appreciate visual displays of respect," she explained. They followed her to a waiting vehicle, a silent, hovering transport powered by stellium technology. As they traveled, the landscape changed. The carefully tended fields and gardens of Nova Haven gave way to wild terrain. Strange plants with broad purple leaves covered the ground, and rock formations jutted up like fingers pointing to the sky. "This area is called the Boundary," Kate explained as the vehicle slowed. "It marks the edge of our territory and the beginning of theirs." They stopped near a large cave entrance carved into the side of a hill. Several other colonists waited there, including Dr. Eric Daniels and a woman Scott hadn't met before. "This is Lily Preston," Kate introduced, "our chief communicator with the singers." Lily had the same blue-tinged skin as the other colonists, but her eyes were a deep amber color. She wore a device on her wrist that Scott didn't recognize. "The OR singers don't communicate with sound as we do," Lily explained. "They use electromagnetic frequencies, similar to radio waves, but produced biologically. This device helps translate their patterns into something our brains can understand. Will we be able to communicate with them?" Natalie asked, looking fascinated despite her obvious nerves. "I'll translate," Lily assured her. "But be prepared. Even with translation, their concepts can be different. They don't think in linear time the way humans do." Kate led them toward the cave entrance. "A few more things you should know. Don't make sudden movements. Keep your emotions calm and neutral. And most importantly, don't touch them unless invited to do so." The cave entrance was larger than it had first appeared, at least 15 feet high and twice as wide. Strange symbols were carved into the rock around it. Inside, soft blue lights, similar to the plants Scott had seen in the garden, lit their path. "The lights are alive," Eric explained, noticing Scott's interest. "They're a symbiotic species that lives with the singers. They feed on the same electromagnetic energy the singers produce." The tunnel sloped gently downward. After walking for about 10 minutes, it opened into a vast underground chamber. Scott stopped in amazement. The ceiling soared at least 50 feet above them, covered entirely in the glowing blue organisms. The floor was smooth, with intricate patterns etched into the stone. At the center of the chamber was a raised platform. "Wait here," Kate instructed, pointing to a circle marked on the floor. "They'll come to us." The group stood in the circle, waiting. The air felt charged, like just before a lightning storm. Scott noticed the hairs on his arms standing up. "They're here," Lily whispered, her wrist device beginning to pulse with light. At first, Scott couldn't see anything. Then he noticed a shimmer in the air, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The shimmer moved, taking shape as it approached. The creature that materialized before them was unlike anything Scott had imagined. It had a translucent body that seemed to shift between solid and gaseous states. Its form was roughly cylindrical, about 7 feet tall, with multiple appendages that appeared and disappeared as needed. Inside its body, pulses of light moved in complex patterns, changing colors from blue to green to purple. "That's how they communicate," Lily explained softly. The light patterns, more singers appeared, surrounding them in a loose circle. Scott counted 12 in total. He forced himself to breathe normally to keep his heart rate steady. Lily's device flashed rapidly as she held it toward the creatures. "They welcome us," she translated. "They say they've been waiting a long time to meet humans from beyond this world." "Tell them we're honored to meet them," Scott replied, his voice steady despite his awe. Lily adjusted something on her device, which emitted a series of light pulses toward the singers. The creatures' internal lights flickered in response. "They're curious about our ship," Lily continued. "They can sense it in orbit. They want to know if more humans will come." Scott considered his answer carefully. "We don't know yet. We came to find the lost colony. Finding another intelligent species is unexpected." After Lily translated, the singers' lights pulsed more rapidly. They moved closer, their forms rippling. "They say they've been studying us, both the colony and your ship, since you arrived," Lily said. "They find humans fascinating but confusing. They don't understand why we were separated for so long." "It's a long story," Scott replied. "Our world had troubles that kept us from returning sooner." The lead singer moved even closer to Scott. Its body shifted, forming what looked almost like a face. Not human, but with features in approximately the right places. It raised an appendage slowly. "It wants to touch you," Lily whispered urgently. "This is unprecedented. If you agree, stay completely calm. They can sense electrical impulses in our nervous systems." Scott nodded once. "I agree." The singer's appendage, cool and slightly tingly, like touching static electricity, touched Scott's forehead. Immediately his mind filled with images and feelings that weren't his own. Curiosity, wonder, the sensation of swimming through Earth instead of walking on it, the joy of connecting minds with others of its kind. As quickly as it started, the connection ended. The singer withdrew, its lights pulsing rapidly. "What just happened?" Frank asked, his hand instinctively moving toward his weapon before he caught himself. Lily listened to her device. "It says it wanted to understand you better. It says—" She paused, looking surprised. "It says you are different from the other humans here. Your mind patterns are less adaptable, more rigid, but also stronger in some ways." The lead singer moved back to join the others. Their lights synchronized briefly, creating a beautiful wave pattern around the circle. "They're discussing something," Lily said. "Deciding." After a moment, the lead singer approached again. Its body shifted, forming two separate appendages that reached out, one toward Scott and one toward Kate. "It wants to connect with both of you at once," Lily translated. "To show you something important." Kate stepped forward without hesitation. Scott joined her, steeling himself for another mental contact. The singer touched them both simultaneously. This time, instead of random impressions, Scott saw clear images, the planet from above, changing over time. He saw the singers living in harmony with the world for thousands of years. He saw the arrival of the human colony, the singers' initial fear, then curiosity. And finally, he saw something else, something moving in the space beyond the planet. Something large and unknown, approaching. When the connection broke, Scott found himself breathing hard. He looked at Kate, who appeared equally shaken. "Did you see that?" he asked her. She nodded. "Something's coming. Something they're concerned about." The return journey to Nova Haven was tense and quiet. Scott's mind was filled with the images the singer had shared. Something was coming toward the Proxima Centauri system. Something that concerned even these ancient beings who had survived on this planet for thousands of years. As soon as they reached the colony, Scott contacted the Horizon. "Commander Owens, I need you to run a full sensor sweep of the system. Look for any approaching objects, particularly from the direction of Proxima Centauri B's outer moon." "May I ask why, Admiral?" Kyle's voice came through clearly. "The singers showed us something," Scott replied. "An unknown object approaching the system. I need to know if it's real or symbolic." "Understood, sir. We'll begin scanning immediately." While they waited for results, Kate gathered her council in a large meeting room. The circular table seated 20 people, each representing different aspects of the colony's leadership. Scott and his team were given places of honor. "What exactly did you see?" asked Sam Foster, the security chief. Scott described the vision as best he could. It appeared to be a large vessel or structure, dark, angular, moving deliberately toward this system. Kate nodded. "I saw the same. The singers seemed worried." "Have they ever shown concern like this before?" Natalie asked. Lily Preston, who sat nearby, shook her head. "Never. The singers are usually calm about most matters. They have a different perspective on time and existence than we do. For something to worry them." She didn't finish the thought. The communication system chimed. Kyle's face appeared on the large screen at the end of the room. "Admiral, we've completed our scans. There is an object approaching the system from the direction you specified." The room fell silent. "What kind of object?" Scott asked. "It's large, sir, approximately 2 kilometers in length. Its composition includes materials not in our database. It's moving at sublight speed but on a direct course for Proxima Centauri B." Kyle paused. "Sir, it's definitely artificial." Murmurs spread through the room. Kate stood up. "How long until it arrives?" "At its current speed, approximately 3 days," Kyle answered. Scott looked at Kate. "Has anything like this happened before? Any unknown vessels or contacts since the colony was established?" "Never," Kate replied firmly. "In 70 years, your ship is the first to approach our world." "Could it be from Earth? Another recovery mission?" Alan suggested. Scott shook his head. No Earth vessel would approach without announcing itself, and none of our ships are that size. Sam Foster leaned forward. We need to prepare defensive measures. If this is a threat, we don't know that it is, Natalie interrupted. It could be another species entirely, maybe even peaceful. The singers didn't seem to think so, Kate pointed out. Scott made a decision. Commander Owens, bring the Horizon into low orbit. I want the ship ready for emergency action if needed. Yes, sir, Kyle responded before signing off. The meeting continued for hours as they debated what to do. Some colonists wanted to hide, moving their population into shelters. Others suggested trying to communicate with the approaching vessel. Through it all, Scott noticed Kate growing increasingly quiet, her eyes distant. Later that evening, as the others continued their planning, Scott found Kate standing alone on a balcony, looking up at the night sky. You've been quiet, he said, joining her at the railing. I've been thinking about our history, she replied. For generations we believed we were forgotten. We built our lives here, adapted to this world, made peace with our neighbors. Now, in the span of a few days, everything changes. First you arrive, then this. Do you wish we hadn't come? Scott asked. Kate turned to him, her violet eyes reflecting the starlight. No. Your arrival was a reminder that we're still part of humanity, despite our changes, but I wonder if there's a connection between our arrival and this object. Kate nodded. The timing seems significant. Before Scott could respond, his communication device beeped. Admiral, this is Olivia from the Horizon. The singers are broadcasting some kind of signal toward our ship. They're requesting that you and Governor Miller return to the boundary immediately. Scott and Kate exchanged looks. We're on our way, Scott replied. They took a transport back to the cave entrance, accompanied by Lily and her translation device. The singers were waiting for them, their bodies pulsing with urgent patterns of light. They say the object has accelerated, Lily translated as soon as the singers began communicating. It will arrive within hours, not days. How is that possible? Scott demanded. The Horizon's sensors. The singers can sense things differently, Kate explained. Their perception extends beyond our technological capabilities. The lead singer moved forward, its lights shifting to a deep pulsing red. It says they know what's coming, Lily continued. They've encountered it before, long ago. Before humans arrived. She listened more as the lights flashed rapidly. They call it, the closest translation would be the Harvester. What does it want? Kate asked. The singer's lights dimmed to an ominous purple. It takes, Lily translated slowly. It comes to worlds with life and takes. Species, resources, knowledge. Then it moves on, leaving devastation behind. Scott felt a chill run through him. Ask them how they survived before. After Lily relayed the question, the singer's body expanded, forming a dome shape that enveloped all of them in a gentle field of energy. Inside this dome, images appeared in the air around them, a history playing out in 3 dimensions. Scott and Kate watched as the story unfolded. The singers, thousands of years ago, detecting the approach of the Harvester. They're desperate, plan to hide beneath the surface to mask their civilization's energy signature. The Harvester arriving, scanning the planet, taking samples of unintelligent life forms, then leaving, apparently satisfied that no intelligent life existed to harvest. When the images faded, the singer released them from the dome. They hid. Last time, Scott said, understanding. But now there's us, Kate finished. A human colony with technology, with energy signatures that can't be hidden. And the Horizon in orbit, Scott added grimly, broadcasting its presence to anything watching. The singer pulsed a new pattern. It says there's little time, Lily translated. We must decide now, hide or fight. Scott activated his communicator. Commander Owens, battle stations. We have a hostile entity approaching. Prepare the ship for potential engagement. With respect, sir, Kyle replied. The Horizon is a science vessel with minimal weapons. We're not equipped for combat against something of that size. I know, Scott said. But we need to buy time. He turned to Kate. How quickly can you evacuate your people underground? She shook her head. Not quickly enough. We have over 4,000 colonists spread across different settlements. The lead singer moved closer, its lights now pulsing in a pattern Scott recognized from before, the pattern it had used when it wanted to establish mental contact. It wants to connect with both of you again, Lily said. It says it has a solution, but it requires something from each of us. A union. Scott and Kate stepped forward together, allowing the singer to touch them both. This time, the mental connection was stronger, clearer. Scott saw not images, but concepts. The singer's plan forming in his mind. The colonist's genetic adaptations. The singer's ability to manipulate electromagnetic energy. The Horizon's Alcubierre drive. 3 different technologies. 3 different species, all combining into one desperate strategy. When the connection broke, Scott and Kate looked at each other with new understanding. It could work, Kate whispered. It has to, Scott replied, turning to signal the Horizon. We have a plan. Above them, in the darkening sky of Proxima Centauri b, a faint light appeared, growing larger with each passing moment. The Harvester was coming, and 3 species who had never meant to find each other now faced it together, no longer stranded, no longer forgotten, no longer alone.